The sharp clicks of Miriam's heels echoed rapidly against the marble as she descended the spiral staircase. In her hand, she held a tablet displaying a half-finished sketch of a couture gown. "Nanny Selly, where are the kids' uniforms?" she called out as she made her way to the kitchen. The savory aroma of sausages and garlic fried rice greeted her as she entered. 3 trays were perfectly arranged on the island counter, one each for Matthew, Madison, and Michael. Though each child had their own favorite meal, all 3 plates had their napkins neatly folded on the side, just as Miriam had instructed. "Are they downstairs already?" she asked, inspecting Matthew's tray, frowning at the 3 grains of rice that had slipped onto the edge of the plate. With a soft sigh, she grabbed a tissue and wiped them away. The door from the hallway swung open, and the first to walk in was Madison. Her hair was pulled tight into a ponytail, and she wore the pristine uniform of their private academy. "Madison," Miriam called out, her voice low but firm, "how many times have I told you? Your skirt is wrinkled." Madison took a seat and immediately smoothed the pleats of her skirt over her lap. Next came Matthew, lugging his backpack over one shoulder. "Matthew," Miriam began without missing a beat, "how many nights until your piano recital? Did you practice last night, or were you too busy playing that worthless game again?" Matthew gave a small nod, but avoided looking at her. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," Miriam said sharply. She paused what she was doing and set her tablet down on the table. Last, as always, came Michael. His hair was a mess, a smudge of toothpaste clung to the corner of his mouth, and his socks didn't match. Miriam's eyes swept over him from head to toe. "Your hair is still messy, Michael. And what are those socks? Didn't you wear mismatched ones yesterday too?" Michael stopped walking and folded his fingers nervously over the edge of his wrinkled shirt. "I'm sorry, Mom," he mumbled under his breath. "Say it clearly." "I'm sorry, Mom," he repeated, louder this time, though he still couldn't meet her gaze. "You're wearing different socks. You've got toothpaste on your face and you're slouching." Miriam tapped the back of Michael's chair, prompting him to sit upright immediately. No one said a word. Even Nanny Selly, who had been bustling about just moments ago, stood frozen in silence. Miriam glanced at Madison. She was chewing slowly on her salted egg and rice. "Madison, sit up straight," Miriam said gently but firmly. "Yes, ma'am," the girl responded with a small nod. Then her eyes turned to Matthew. "I want you to play that recital piece tonight. No excuses." "Yes, ma'am." Miriam stood, picked up her tablet, and left the room. "Finish your food in 10 minutes. The car leaves at exactly 7. The kitchen bell rang in Drew's small diner in Asheville. Known around the neighborhood as Papa Drew's Kitchen, the place was a favorite hangout for local students, workers, and delivery drivers. "Why is someone yelling about an emergency outside?" Drew asked, still holding a wok full of garlic rice. Before he could reach the door, 3 kids burst in, Donnie, Danny, and Dolly. "Dad, Don had a cockroach in his backpack." "That wasn't me, it was Danny." "I only screamed because the roach flew into the noodles," Dolly defended herself, swatting at the air with a plastic ruler. "Hey, don't mess with the noodles. That's the lunch order for the town councilman," Drew shouted, grabbing the ruler from Dolly. "First it was ants in Mr. Bert's coffee. Now it's a roach in the lo mein." Danny strolled in, unfazed, holding a matchbox. "Dad, I just wanted to keep the roach as a pet. I thought maybe I could raise it." "A roach as a pet?" Drew narrowed his eyes. "What's next, rats? Want a snake too, cowboy?" "Can I, Dad?" Danny's eyes lit up. Drew just held his head and shook it. "You kids are something else. Come on now, eat first. The rice porridge is still hot. Got milk from Miss Martha, still within the expiration date." "Yay!" the triplets yelled in unison as they raced toward the tiny kitchen table. Dolly tripped and fell right in front of the stove. "Ow! I'm not gonna cry. We're tough, right, Dad? Right, but if you scraped something, I'm putting antiseptic on it. No infections for my cowboys. Once seated, Drew handed out bowls of porridge. Danny, don't dunk your bread in that, it's not soup. But it tastes better this way. Don, that's a fork, not a spoon. I can manage, Dad. It's a challenge. Dolly, why is there a picture of stew in your notebook? Homework. We had to draw our favorite food, so I even added gravy to make it realistic. Drew laughed as he watched them, chaotic and loud, but they brightened every day. Kids, remember this. It's okay not to have everything, as long as you've got love and extra rice. They all burst out laughing again. Dad, if we had a mom, do you think she'd let us keep a roach as a pet? Danny asked while chewing. Drew went quiet for a moment, then smiled. She'd probably chase you out with a broom, but maybe she'd let you keep a cat. I don't want a cat. Roaches don't bite, Don argued. The siblings laughed again. When you're done eating, wash the dishes. No escaping. Roger that, Chef Dad. All three saluted. The sun was hot, but the breeze was crisp at Camp Evergreen in upstate Pennsylvania. Early in the morning, camp counselors were already busy checking in students arriving from various private schools. Group A, to the right. Group B, to the left, one counselor shouted, trying to organize the kids who weren't following instructions. On either side of the camp entrance, 2 different vans arrived almost simultaneously. The first van belonged to the exclusive academy, attended by Matthew, Madison, and Michael, Miriam's children. Madison was the first to hop off, wearing a branded sun hat and a neck pillow slung around her neck. You, Mud, do you have any hand sanitizer? That tent might be full of germs. I don't care about the tent as long as there's no piano. She rattled off rapidly. Matthew, Michael, and Madison all followed behind in a wave of complaints. Meanwhile, from the opposite side of the campgrounds came loud shouting from Drew's triplets, Don, Danny, and Dolly. Let's race! Wait, we're not even registered yet. They might think we're just kids who wandered off. A counselor approached. Are you all siblings? We're sextuplets, the triplets answered at once. But there are only 3 of you. I don't know. We just know we're sextuplets. Matthew glanced toward the other group. He paused. Nick, that kid over there kinda looks like me. Which one? The one in the hot dog t-shirt. Oh my gosh, Michael. He kind of looks like a street version of you. From a short distance away, Dolly was also staring in their direction. Danny, that kid looks like you. Only fancier. He's even wearing a belt. Geez, his waist is tiny. That's not me. As the 2 groups approached the activity area, a counselor stepped in. Okay, kids, line up for orientation. Mixed groups. That means you'll all do activities together. Mixed? As in mixed with them? Madison asked. What, you allergic to happy faces? Don shot back. As both groups walked toward the area, Michael and Don caught each other's eyes. They spoke at the same time. What's your name? Michael. Don. Then both of them paused again. Is your birthday May 12th? Yes, Don answered. Born where? Same here, St. Teresita Medical Center in Asheville. Wait. At the same time, the kids from both groups shouted, How many of us are there? All 6 of them looked at each other, mouths open, heads spinning. Matthew raised his hand. I'm Matthew. I'm Madison. I'm Michael. I'm Danny. I'm Don. I'm Dolly. They all stared at each other. After a few seconds, the reactions poured in. Maybe we're clones, or a multiverse thing. Maybe we're some kind of experiment. Well, we've got something to figure out now. Right, we have a mission. Find out who our mom and dad are and what really happened. But first, can we have snacks? All 6 nodded. After orientation, The kids were laughing, sharing stories about their lives at home, who always had packed snacks, who got yelled at the most, and who was the best at hiding things, according to each of their own versions. While resting beneath a tree near the activity area, 3 men appeared, dressed like forest rangers with Nature Safety Unit patches on their sleeves. They carried compasses, laminated maps, and wore IDs. "Excuse us, kids," one said. "We need you to come with us. There's a special nature walk for select campers only." "Select campers?" Madison blinked. "Wow, we're VIPs?" "Wait, why just us?" Danny and Madison asked. "It's from your camp office, special permission for an advanced eco-leadership program," one man said, wearing sunglasses even under the shade of the tree. "What is that?" Michael asked. "Survival skills, archery, some banana foraging contests, stuff like that," another answered quickly. The 6 exchanged glances. Then they all nodded. "Let's go, as long as there's no mud." "Is there a prize? I want bananas." Madison, Matthew, and Dolly fell in step first, and the rest followed. At first, everything seemed fun. Don even snapped selfies with Drew's old cell phone that didn't have signal. But after nearly 30 minutes of winding uphill hiking, something felt off. "Sir, where are the other campers?" Michael asked. "They didn't have clearance. You're VIP," the bearded man replied, quickening his pace. Eventually, they stopped in front of an old house with tattered curtains, broken windows, and a cardboard sign that said, "Welcome Campers," in marker. "This doesn't look legit," Madison whispered, reaching for her insect spray like it was a weapon. "Come in, we still have orientation," one man ordered. Inside, they all froze. No camping gear, just an old table, 2 plastic chairs, an empty thermos, and a chicken cage. "Where's the archery?" Michael asked. "And the bananas?" "Shh, listen first," said the man in shades. The bearded one stepped forward. "Sorry, there's been a small mix-up." "With a chicken cage?" Matthew muttered. "You 6 are the children of the real estate tycoon, Mr. Andrew Villeran, right?" All 6 looked at each other. "Huh? Who?" Matthew and Michael asked together. "That's not our dad. Our dad's Chef Andrew, loves dried fish, doesn't even own a car," Don proudly said. The man in shades slapped his forehead. "My mom's name is Miriam," Madison added. "She's a fashion designer, doesn't smile much." The man groaned again. "See, I told you we grabbed the wrong kids." The tip said 6 elite school kids with embroidered luggage tags. "Look, these kids have stickers on cardboard." "We do go to an elite school," Miko said cheerfully, "but we're kids of different parents who used to be together but split up. Then we got reunited here." The 3 men fell silent, glancing at each other and scratching their heads. "Can we go home now?" Dolly asked. "We don't have a compass. Isn't this kidnapping?" "If we make it back, one thing's certain," Don, Danny, Madison, and Matthew said together. "Our mum and dad might reunite, but at the police station." Elsewhere, inside a local police station. "Excuse me, Chief. My 3 kids are missing. They're minors. They were supposed to be at a nature camp, but now they can't be contacted or found." Miriam's voice trembled with a mix of rage and worry as she held up a tablet showing photos of Matthew, Madison, and Michael. Her heart pounded, but she stood straight, refusing to break. "Ma'am, we received a report earlier. A group of children was seen near the highway. We're still confirming their identities," the officer replied while jotting notes. The door to the station opened. A man wearing a checkered shirt, jeans, and a scrape on his arm came in and spoke immediately. "Chief, I'm here to report a kidnapping. My 3 kids are missing from a nature camp." Miriam turned sharply to look at him. Her eyes narrowed in recognition. "Wait, Drew?" Drew turned too, frowning slightly. "Miriam!" There was a brief silence. Then, as if on cue, they both exploded. "What are you doing here?" Miriam demanded. "Excuse me, I should be asking you that," Drew shot back. "You skipped visitation for 3 years, and now you show up acting all righteous?" "This isn't about you, Drew. My children are missing," she yelled. "And what do you think I'm doing here? Taking a vacation? I'm looking for my kids too. Or did you forget you left 3 more with me?" "Maybe you had something to do with this," she accused. "You're wrong. If you think I'd take them, you don't know me at all. I'm not that low, unlike you." "Low? Me? You're the one who broke our agreement. We agreed to co-parent. Then you cut off communication," Drew shot back. "Don't you dare blame me. You're the one who walked away from the marriage." "I pulled out because you never listened to me. It was always your way or nothing, and if I hadn't done it, who else would have?" Drew's voice rose. "Your solution to every problem was to cook rice porridge." "At least I made good porridge, without needing imported spoons," Miriam snapped. "Just because I'm from Asheville doesn't mean I don't know how to raise kids." "You can't even dress them properly." "Enough," the desk officer barked, slamming a folder on the table. "You two are here to report missing children, not to audition for a soap opera." They fell silent. "Let's look at the facts," the officer continued. "You both reported 3 missing kids. Same age, same number, same genders. Isn't it possible we're talking about the same group?" Miriam and Drew looked at each other. "Impossible," Miriam whispered. "This can't be happening," Drew muttered. "Sextuplets," they said together, barely believing the words. They'd been separated and didn't even know it. Another moment of silence hung in the air before the police radio crackled. "Chief, confirmation just came in. 6 children, look exactly alike, found safe by the highway, came from the mountain." Miriam and Drew jolted upright. "Where are they? I need to see my kids," Miriam cried. "Me too. Please take us there right now," Drew added. The officers immediately escorted them to the outpost where the 6 children were being temporarily cared for. As soon as the vehicle door opened, Miriam didn't waste a second. She jumped out, not caring if her blouse wrinkled or her shoes got muddy. "Michael!" she shouted, running toward the small covered area where the 6 were gathered. "Mom!" Michael turned, and so did Matthew and Madison. They all screamed at once and ran into her arms. She knelt down and wrapped them tightly in her embrace. Her hands trembled as she touched the backs of their heads, and tears streamed down her face. "I thought—" But she couldn't finish the sentence. She just hugged them tighter. On the other side, Drew arrived, nearly losing a sandal in his rush. He looked breathless, panic written all over his face. "Danny, Don, Dolly!" The 3 turned around instantly and ran toward him. "Dad, we actually have a real mom, and we're siblings with the fancy kids," Danny shouted without filter. "Fancy, huh?" Drew laughed, reaching out and hugging all 3 of them at once. "I thought you'd been taken by aliens, or ended up on some sketchy reality show." "Nope, we were kidnapped, but they had a chicken," Dolly explained seriously. Drew shook his head in disbelief. "You guys, not even kidnappers scare you." "They were more scared of us, Dad. We're way too noisy," Don said proudly. As both sets of children reunited with their parents, they turned to look at each other. Miriam and Drew locked eyes. "So, what exactly is our relationship?" asked Michael, followed quickly by Madison, Don, and Danny. Miriam took a deep breath and stepped closer to Drew. The tension between them remained, but with 6 curious faces craving answers, there was no place to hide. "Kids, it's true. All 6 of you are sextuplets," Drew said softly. "What? Then why were we separated?" the children asked together. Miriam looked down at the ground and slowly sat on a bench. "Your father and I separated years ago. We couldn't agree, so we split you up. We thought it would be easier, but we didn't realize—" That it was unfair. Matthew finished for her. Drew glanced at Miriam. He didn't want to admit it, but the boy was right. You didn't do anything wrong, Drew said. It was our mistake. We can't take back the time you spent apart, but we can try to fix it now. Yes, Madison nodded. We want to stay together, at least for now. While the police are still investigating the kidnapping, she added. They said we can't go back to our old homes yet because it might not be safe, Don and Danny explained. But we're happy, even if the house in the woods had roaches, Dolly chimed in. Miriam nodded thoughtfully. We have a beach house in South Carolina. It's barely used. We can stay there for now. All 6 kids looked up. A beach? Yay! They shouted in unison. They arrived at the beach house, a 2-story home with a wide veranda and an open-concept living room. The 6 kids were already in a frenzy, arguing over who would get the upstairs room. We're taking the upstairs room. We're the eldest, Madison declared, already climbing the stairs. Hey, us too, Danny shouted, tugging Matthew backward. Race to the bed, yelled all 3 of them. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Miriam and Drew were unpacking groceries. Miriam carefully arranged the freshly washed utensils, while Drew laid out the items he had picked up from the market. Why on earth did you buy 10 cans of sardines? Miriam asked without turning to look at him. In case of emergencies, and so we don't starve if the power goes out, Drew answered calmly. Power outages? We're only staying for a few days. This isn't survival training, Miriam replied, annoyed. At least I came prepared. You don't have to rub it in that I wasn't. I didn't say that, but let's be honest. You're the meticulous one. Even in a beach house, you have a checklist for where to place the drinking glasses. Miriam spun around, one eyebrow raised. At least it's clean and organized, unlike your house, which looks like a street market. Street markets have better food than your fridge full of tofu and grass, Drew snapped back. I'd rather that than your pantry full of pork rinds and instant noodles. Don't insult pork rinds, Drew fired back. They're the only thing in your life with flavor. I prefer that over your spaghetti with no sauce. I made it like that on purpose, low carb, Miriam retorted smugly. Upstairs, the 6 kids were peeking down from the railing, stifling their laughter. Dolly couldn't contain her giggles while Madison covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. I told you, they broke up because they argue all the time. They're like cartoons, like Tom and Jolena. Tom and Jolena? You mean Tom and Jerry. But did you notice something? Mom didn't yell as loudly as usual. She's not like this at home, especially not around Nanny. She even laughed at Dad's joke earlier. As the 6 siblings whispered to each other, a realization slowly dawned on them. Maybe they still have feelings for each other. If they get back together, do you think we'd get a 7th sibling? They whispered. Meanwhile, outside by the water. I'm not going in there, Miriam said firmly, standing by the shore with her arms crossed like a strict principal on a first-grade field trip. Come on, Mom, just up to your knees, just for a picture so we'll have memories. The water's really nice, the kids begged. Look at Danny, he found a crab, but he's the one who got scared. I can't swim, Miriam muttered. The kids froze. What did you say, Mom? Nothing. Fine, okay, but only for a moment. Then I'm going back to my seat. She took off her sunglasses and handed them to Madison. Yay! Family photo in the water. Dad, Mom's going to the water, Don called out excitedly. Huh? Are you sure? She said so herself, Dodo confirmed. Miriam cautiously stepped into the waves. Her movements were hesitant. Yikes, that's cold, she said, shivering. It's always cold at first, Mom. You just gotta commit, Michael shouted. Almost there. Keep going, Drew called out from the shoreline. The water reached Miriam's waist. She stopped. "That's enough," she said. But suddenly, her foot sank into a drop in the seabed. She lost her balance and fell. For a moment, she disappeared underwater. "Mom!" the kids screamed together. Drew sprinted into the water without hesitation. He kicked off his sandals, shoved away a hot dog stick, and swam toward Miriam's floating figure. "Miriam!" he shouted as he reached her. He anchored her with one arm and pulled her back toward the shore. As waves crashed around them, Drew didn't care that Miriam was coughing up seawater and shaking from the shock. Once they reached the sand, the kids rushed over. "Mom!" they cried, wiping her face in a panic. "I'm fine," Miriam croaked. Her voice was raspy and she was shaking. "Just, for a second, I thought I was done for." Drew helped her sit down, concerned. "Jesus, Miriam, why didn't you say you couldn't swim?" "I was embarrassed." "Drowning is more embarrassing." Miriam couldn't reply. She looked at Drew as he wiped her forehead with his own shirt. "Thank you," she whispered. The midday heat had settled in. Drew knelt beside the old air conditioner in the downstairs room, a towel draped around his neck, and a screwdriver in his hand. From the corner of his eye, he saw Miriam standing in the doorway. "What are you doing now?" she asked. "Trying to get this antique AC to breathe again. It's hot upstairs and the kids might get too warm." "You look like you've been boiled alive," Miriam muttered, rolling her eyes. Drew smiled and stood up, wiping his forehead. "Couldn't we just call a technician?" "I did. They said they can't come until tomorrow." "So what? Are we supposed to sleep with that fan that sounds like a helicopter?" Miriam sighed. "So this is why you didn't want me staying in Manhattan. You love fixing broken things." "Yes," Drew whispered. "But I gave up on something I shouldn't have tried to fix. I thought it was beyond saving." Miriam dropped the wet glass she had been holding. Luckily, it was plastic. "What are you talking about, Drew?" He stepped toward her slowly. "I made a mistake. I thought I could let everything slide. But the truth is, I was scared. I didn't know how to love a woman with so many standards, especially coming from nothing. You accepted me, but I crumbled under the weight of your expectations. I tried my best, Miriam, but maybe that wasn't enough. Not for you, not for the life you had." Miriam froze. For a few seconds, she couldn't speak. "What are you trying to say, Drew?" Her voice was calm but heavy. "That it wasn't just you. It was both of us. I got scared. You got hurt. And neither of us knew how to fix it." "I tried so hard to be okay," Miriam said, still holding the half-full cup. "I told myself at least I had half of our children with me. At least I had my career. At least I was a strong woman. But Drew, I never forgave myself. For not stopping you. For choosing pride instead of saying the truth. That I was tired, that I was scared too, and that I wanted you to fight harder for me." They fell silent. The weight of years of unsaid words hung between them. "I could never match your world," Drew said. "That's why I shut down during our fights. I always felt like I wasn't enough. I didn't choose you to match my world. I chose you because with you, I could rest. But when you left, that disappeared," Miriam said softly. "I don't know what we are now," she continued, "but I know I don't want to keep failing you, and I don't want to keep pretending that it's okay for our family to stay broken." Suddenly, the door to one of the rooms burst open. Michael emerged, crying and holding a plastic bag. "There's poop in the AC room, and it's not mine." The kids rushed in behind him. Miriam and Drew composed themselves quickly and followed. The smell hit them immediately. Matthew was standing in one corner, while Danny was covering his nose with a blanket. "What happened here?" Miriam asked. "Something snuck in and, well, left a souvenir," Madison complained. "This is what I'm saying," Drew muttered. This house is older than our relationship. Number, we haven't talked in so long. It's older than this house, Miriam replied. Then let's fix both. Later, Miriam sat reviewing photocopies of birth certificates that had been sent to her by her former OB after a phone call earlier that afternoon. It had started as a simple request for school paperwork, but one detail didn't match. She frowned, reading the attending physician's name over and over. It wasn't the same doctor who delivered her children. Moments later, Drew came down from upstairs. Noticing Miriam's unsettled expression, he walked over. "Hey, are you okay?" She handed him one of the documents. Drew squinted at it. "Birth certificate. Matthews. Look at the attending physician," Miriam said. Drew frowned. "That's not Dr. Santos, is it? This is someone else." Miriam nodded. "And it's not just that. The signature's different. So is the birth time. It doesn't match the others." "What does that mean?" Drew asked, swallowing hard. "I had the hospital look into it. I got the old records. I also submitted a DNA test. It came in today." She handed Drew another envelope. Her hand trembled. He opened it and read silently, his breathing growing deeper. Finally, he looked up at Miriam. "Matthew, he's not my son." Miriam shook her head. "He's not ours." Shock and sorrow crossed Drew's face. He held his head and sank onto the floor. "He was switched at the hospital, Drew. No one's to blame. Not us. And definitely not Matthew. But we've raised him for 7 years. We believed—" "Miriam, how do we tell him?" Drew's voice broke as he stared into space. Miriam didn't respond right away. She stared at the paper in her hand. Slowly, she folded it. "He's still our son, Drew. But now we have to find our real child." Her eyes drifted to the door, as if the answer was waiting outside the beach house. "That's what we need to do," she whispered. They heard faint footsteps from upstairs. Drew looked up. "Someone's awake." "I'll go," Miriam said. She climbed the stairs quietly. The hallway light flicked on. Matthew stood there, holding his pillow, sweat on his forehead. "Mum?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "I heard your voice. Are you okay?" She walked over and hugged him tightly. "Mum's fine." Matthew looked up at her. "Why do you look so sad?" She pinched his cheek. "Nothing. It's late. Go back to sleep, okay?" "Can I sleep beside you tonight?" Miriam nodded. "Of course." He smiled and reached for her hand. Together they walked back downstairs where Drew was waiting. Miriam couldn't sleep the entire night. Even while holding Matthew as he slept peacefully beside her, her mind kept drifting back to the old name she'd seen on the hospital record, Angelica Mercado, Drew's old best friend, the one people used to whisper about in their family circles. While Drew was busy cooking breakfast in the kitchen, Miriam quietly joined him. She stood there in silence, watching as he sliced tomatoes with slow, measured hands. "Drew," she said softly. "Yes?" "Do you remember where you were the day I gave birth?" Drew paused mid-slice. He looked at her, puzzled by the question. "What kind of question is that?" "Of course, I was outside the delivery room. The nurse only called me in after the last baby was born." "Do you remember if any of your friends gave birth at the same hospital that day?" Drew's brow furrowed. "Angelica, my old best friend, but I don't know if it was the same day." "Why?" "I saw her name in the hospital records, same admission date as mine, and Matthew's face." Miriam hesitated. "He looks nothing like me, but exactly like you as a kid." Drew froze. The realization began to dawn on him. "You think he's Angelica's child?" "I'm not saying I'm certain," Miriam said, "but out of all 6, only Matthew has different features, and he's the spitting image of your childhood photos, but I never gave birth to him." Drew walked toward her, one hand still resting on the table. "Miriam, I never had a relationship with Angelica. She was my best friend, that's all. I never cheated on you." "Then how do you explain how much Matthew looks like you?" Drew didn't answer immediately. He stared down at the floor. "Angelica. She dated someone close to me. My half-brother, Nico Miriam, raised an eyebrow." "Half-brother?" "My dad's son from another woman. We didn't grow up together, but we got close in college. Angelica was his girlfriend." Miriam slowly sat down. A missing puzzle piece clicked into place. "So, if they were a couple, then Nico might be Matthew's father." Drew nodded. "If Angelica gave birth the same day we did, the babies could have been swapped, especially if she didn't know how to tell her family. They were struggling financially back then." "Where is she now?" Miriam asked. "Germany. She migrated years ago. I haven't spoken to her in a long time." "And Nico?" Drew looked down. "He died in a motorcycle accident, 3 years after Angelica gave birth." Miriam whispered. "So if Angelica gave birth and never found her real child, then he might have ended up with me. And Matthew," her voice trailed off, "grew up with a mother who wasn't biologically his, but that mother was you," Drew said gently. "And you loved him with everything you had." Miriam clutched her chest, tears welling in her eyes. "What do we tell him, Drew? How do we explain this?" "We don't have to rush it," Drew said, "but we can't hide it from him forever. We'll find Angelica, so Matthew can know who he truly is. I just want to know if she has other family, if she's doing well in Germany, if she still has the right to know." Drew nodded quietly. He pulled Miriam close and wrapped his arms around her. "No matter what happens, one thing won't change. In our hearts, Matthew is our son." Moments later, they heard a door open upstairs. Matthew came out, holding his favorite blanket, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Mom, Dad, why are you crying?" Miriam and Drew both turned to face him. Her chest tightened, but she wiped her tears and forced a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart. We were just talking." Matthew walked over and wrapped his arms around both of them. "It's cold in the room, but warm when I'm with you." Drew smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Good morning, buddy. Want some rice porridge? With dried fish?" Matthew grinned. "You're my favorite chef, Dad." "Of course I am." 2 days after their conversation, Miriam and Drew went to the local hospital where Miriam had given birth. They brought old records and a copy of the DNA results. With the help of a former nurse, now an administrative officer, they located the piece of information they had been searching for. A baby had been reported left in the emergency room on the same day Miriam gave birth. No name, no birth record. According to the file, the infant was turned over to an orphanage in Maryland after no relatives came forward. Miriam stayed silent during the drive there, tightly holding a photo of her 6 children, 5 of them, anyway. She didn't know what to feel. Drew, focused on the road, wore a serious expression. "Nervous?" Drew asked, not taking his eyes off the road. "I don't know which is worse, seeing him or not," Miriam replied softly. When they arrived at the orphanage, a nun greeted them. She carefully reviewed their documents before leading them to her office. "According to our records, the child you're asking about was given the name Elias," the nun said. "That name was chosen by one of our volunteers. He's a kind boy, intelligent but withdrawn, especially around adults." Miriam and Drew exchanged glances. Just hearing the name made Miriam's chest tighten. "Can we see him?" The nun nodded. "He's out back, painting. If you'd like to approach him yourselves, you may. But I'll warn you, he's not usually comfortable around strangers." Miriam stood, and Drew followed her through a small door leading to the backyard. At an art table under a tree sat a young boy, about 7 years old. He had messy hair, paint smudges on his cheek, and he was intently focused on his watercolor painting. But at first glance, Miriam saw a ghost, a reflection of her other children. The shape of his face, the eyes, the nose and lips, all mirrored her other kids. "Elias!" the nun called. The boy turned slightly, then quickly went back to painting, uninterested. "You've got visitors," she said. "They just want to meet you." Drew stepped forward gently. "Hi, Elias. That's a beautiful painting." Elias glanced at him briefly, then returned to his work. "I'm painting it for the sky, for my brother Nico. They say he's gone, but I still want to give him a gift," the boy said, quietly but clearly. Drew's chest tightened. He swallowed hard. "You knew him?" Drew asked. Elias nodded. "They said he was a friend of my mom's, but she left too. I stayed here." Miriam stood at a distance. Each word from the boy pierced her heart. She wanted to go to him, hug him, tell him she was there, but she knew it wasn't that simple. "Elias!" she finally called. The boy stopped painting and slowly turned toward her. "Son." But Elias took a step back. "I don't know you. I don't want this," he said. "Elias, they're kind people," the nun said, kneeling beside him. "They just want to meet you. You can ask them anything you want." "I don't want a new family," Elias said firmly, shaking his head. Miriam looked down, blinking away tears. Drew quietly stepped up beside her and gently touched her hand. "He may not be ready now," he whispered. "But one day he will be." "What if he never accepts us, Drew?" Miriam asked in a hushed tone. "We won't force him," Drew replied, "but we won't leave him either." That evening, back at the beach house, Miriam and Drew sat on the veranda, while Matthew worked on his science project in the living room, carefully placing stickers on a chart. Drew held a letter from Angelica in his pocket, a letter that had arrived just days after they confirmed the truth. "I think it's time to tell him," Drew said quietly. Miriam nodded without smiling. She had known this moment would come, but still, she wasn't ready. Drew approached Matthew. "Son, can I talk to you for a minute?" Matthew nodded and sat beside him, continuing to place stickers, but slowing down as he sensed the seriousness in Drew's tone. "Your mom and we have something to tell you. We've been thinking about it for a long time." Matthew looked straight at them. "What is it?" Miriam glanced at Drew. "Matthew, when you were born, there was a mistake at the hospital. You were switched with another baby." Matthew went quiet. It was clear he didn't understand right away. "You mean, you're not my mom?" Miriam's voice cracked. "I didn't give birth to you, but I raised you, from your very first cry until now." "And we talked to someone," Drew added. "She's your biological mom. She wants to meet you, but don't worry, we're not going anywhere." Matthew stood up slowly. He couldn't speak. Confusion and hesitation filled his eyes. He looked at both of them. "But you're my mom and dad. I don't want anyone else." "Son, you don't have to choose," Miriam said. "We just wanted you to know the truth. Angelica didn't abandon you. She didn't choose to lose you." "I don't want her," Matthew said. "I don't need her. I don't know her. You're my mum, Mum." Miriam finally broke down, holding him tightly, her shoulders trembling as she cried. She didn't want to let go. Angelica arrived holding a small toy box she brought for Matthew. She walked slowly but stopped as soon as she saw what was happening inside the room. Matthew wrapped tightly in Miriam's arms, both of them crying. Angelica stood at the doorway and didn't move. The weight of what she saw froze her in place. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "Matthew," she called softly. The boy turned his head and looked at her briefly, but didn't move closer. Angelica closed her eyes. Slowly she nodded. The forced smile disappeared, and her eyes filled with tears. "It's okay. You don't have to accept me. I understand." Drew walked over to her and gently touched her arm. "Angelica, I'm sorry. Everything is just new to him. He just needs time. No, Drew, she whispered. He doesn't need me. He's not looking for me. He's happy with you two. I don't want to take that away. She smiled again, this time with sorrow. Thank you, but maybe it's better if I just go back to Germany. He's already built his world, with you. I don't need to force myself into it. Before she turned to leave, she placed the toy box on the table. Please give this to him. It's my birthday present for tomorrow. Drew picked up the box and handed it to Matthew. The boy stayed quiet, staring at the gift. He slowly opened it and his eyes widened. Inside was a model kit he had wanted for a long time, one that hadn't been in stores for years. Tucked inside the box was a small card. To Matthew, I love you, even if you don't know me yet. I'm happy that you're happy, and I always pray for you from afar. Matthew stared at it, then quietly closed the box and hugged it tight. Can she come back sometime, just once? He asked Miriam in a whisper. Miriam hugged him and gently kissed his forehead. Yes, sweetheart, if you're ready. Once all the documents were in order, Miriam and Drew formally adopted Elias. Even though he was their biological son, they still wanted to go through the legal process, not to prove anything, but to let him know he was chosen, loved, and finally safe. Since moving into the beach house, Elias became a puzzle to the other children. Elias, come play! Dolly cheered, holding a ball. Elias didn't even glance her way. He sat on the porch with headphones on, painting with an old watercolor set. Wow, he's grumpy. He's like Mom before she and Dad started talking again, Don whispered. Grumpier. At least Mom smiles sometimes, Dolly replied. Elias, want some juice? It's super sweet, they called out. Miko, always the neutral one, scratched his head while watching Elias quietly avoid everyone's attempts at connection. Having a new brother who doesn't care about anything is harder than I thought, Miko muttered to himself. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Miriam and Drew stood together. Have you noticed? Miriam said. No matter how sweet the kids are, Elias keeps pushing them away. Drew paused, then continued pouring oil into a pan. He's still new here. He came from a completely different world. What matters is that the kids don't give up on him. Miriam smiled, though sadness lingered in her eyes. He's got that stubbornness, just like you used to have. You mean he gets it from me? No, Miriam chuckled softly. But if I'd known we'd end up like this again, maybe we wouldn't have split up. Suddenly, they heard a commotion in the living room. Elias, that's enough. You don't have any right to touch my stuff. I didn't ask for this. Why are you all so annoying? Elias yelled. Miriam and Drew exchanged looks and rushed out of the kitchen. In the living room, Elias was standing, fists clenched, his face twisted in anger. He was on the verge of tears. Matthew stood still, holding a torn piece of paper that had been part of Elias's drawing. Did you take this on purpose? Elias shouted. I thought you were done with it. I just wanted to frame it. It's really good, Matthew explained gently. Elias's face hardened even more. You don't understand. None of you understand. Miriam wrapped her arms around Elias from behind, though he tried to push her away. Elias, calm down. We do understand. We're not perfect, but we're family. I don't need a family, Elias shouted, pushing Miriam and running upstairs. Drew made a move to follow, but Miriam stopped him. Let him be. Let him breathe. So he doesn't think we don't care. Number, he just needs to feel that we won't leave him, even if he's angry. Matthew sat on the couch, holding the torn paper. He's not a bad person, he's just sad, he said softly. Elias sat alone on the veranda, curled up on the floor with his arms wrapped around his knees, staring through the glass doors where his 6 siblings were laughing and playing together. His face was expressionless, but his eyes betrayed the whirlwind of emotion within him. Slowly, he let out a long breath and looked up at the darkening sky. A few minutes later, Miriam stepped out and gently placed a blanket beside him. "You're probably cold," she said. Elias didn't respond. He didn't take the blanket either. "I'm fine. I don't need it," he said flatly. Miriam sat beside him without saying anything. She looked through the glass just as he did, watching the other kids inside. They're happy, aren't they? But sometimes, even if everyone else is laughing, it can still feel like you're the only one left out. Elias turned to look at her. His eyebrow lifted slightly, but he said nothing. "Elias, I want to tell you the truth. All of it," Miriam said. Elias frowned. "What truth? That you didn't really want me? That you just took me in because you felt sorry for me?" Miriam shook her head and gently reached for his hand. Elias didn't pull away, but his expression remained guarded. "When you were born, I never got to see you. There was a mistake at the hospital. You were switched and ended up in the orphanage. We never searched for you because we thought our family was already whole." "Then why do I always feel like I'm not part of it?" Elias asked, almost in a whisper. "Why does it feel like I'm the extra?" Miriam's eyes filled with tears. She gently cupped his cheek, even though it was already streaked with his own. "You're not extra. You're the missing piece. You're what we've been looking for this whole time, and just didn't know it. And now that we've found you, we're not letting you go." Elias sniffled. He tried to hold back his tears, but they fell anyway. "I thought I didn't have a family. I thought I was meant to stay in the orphanage forever. Even when people visited, no one ever picked me. So I got used to not hoping." Miriam hugged him tightly. "You're our child, not just because you're our blood, but because we chose you. We love you, even when you're not smiling, even when you're grumpy, even when you push us away." "But aren't families supposed to be together from the start?" Elias asked between sobs. Miriam smiled through her own tears, still holding him close. "No family starts out perfect. Some don't meet right away, some get separated, but fate brings them together, and the only thing that matters is that now, we're complete." Elias leaned into her. He didn't say anything, but he no longer looked away. Just then, the door opened. Matthew stepped outside holding a flashlight and a new sheet of paper. "Hey, big bro, want to draw again? We can frame this one. Promise we won't mess it up." Elias looked at him silently. "I didn't know it was important to you. I'm sorry, but maybe you could teach me. I want to learn to draw like you. You're really good." Elias looked at Miriam, then back at Matthew. "Okay, just don't touch my stuff without asking next time," he said quietly. Matthew nodded and ran back inside to grab the colored pencils. Elias and Miriam stayed on the veranda. For the first time, his face showed the faintest glow of lightness. Can I call you Mom?" Elias asked. Miriam was stunned into silence for a second. Tears slid down her cheeks again, but now they were accompanied by a genuine smile. "From the very beginning, that's all I've been waiting to hear." When they returned to Manhattan, Don, Danny, and Dolly stood quietly, gazing at the wide driveway of Miriam's house. Danny swallowed hard as he eyed the wall, taller than their school's basketball court back in Asheville. "Hey, are you sure this is a house and not a hotel?" Dolly whispered to Don. "I think it's a mansion. Look at the gate. It has an intercom," Don replied. As the door opened, 2 housekeepers came to greet them. Danny immediately stepped back. "Ma'am, is this going to cost us?" he whispered to Don. "Like that free thing at the hotel that actually wasn't free?" Miriam laughed. "No, sweetheart, it's not. This is your home too now. Welcome." The 3 kids stood in stunned silence. Drew, too, was quiet, scanning the place. It had been a long time since he'd stepped inside this house. As soon as they entered, the 6 children bolted up the stairs, clearly excited to return to their own rooms, especially Madison and Michael. While Miriam tidied up a few things in the living room, Drew stepped into the side office and answered a call from a friend in Asheville. "Hey man, you back in Manhattan already?" the caller asked. "Yeah, I'm at Miriam's house," Drew said, glancing at the framed artwork on the walls. "So, you thinking about following through with that proposal you talked about?" Drew froze. "I don't know, man. I really want to, but I'm scared. What if we mess it up again? I don't want to hurt the kids, or Miriam." "But with everything you've told me, it sounds like you already know the answer." Before Drew could respond, he noticed Miriam standing by the door. She had clearly overheard the conversation. Drew ended the call quietly. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't know you were there." "You were going to propose before?" Miriam asked calmly. "When?" "When you gave birth," he replied. "It's okay, I heard it." Miriam sat down on the couch and placed her glass on the table. "Drew, I know you're scared. I am too. But I don't want you to think I didn't choose you. It's not that I didn't want to. I just wanted to make things right. I want to make up for everything, but I'm also scared because sometimes love isn't enough to stop a relationship from breaking." Drew nodded. "We've already been through that, so maybe we've learned from it. We don't need to rush anything. What matters is that we're here for the kids. They don't need a perfect love story. They just need parents who love them." "But do you think we still have a chance?" Miriam asked. "Or are we just holding on to what's familiar?" Drew looked at her carefully. "I've asked myself that for a long time. Am I just chasing the past? But when I watch you with the kids, when I see this house come alive again, I realize I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want to start something new. With you. I just wish we didn't have to break first to realize it. If we hadn't been broken, maybe we wouldn't have learned how to value what we have now." Monday came and the kids were back to school. But it wasn't an ordinary day in the classroom, especially not for Matthew, Michael, and Madison. As they walked into their classroom, all eyes turned to the back, where 2 new faces had taken seats. "Whoa, wait, triplets again?" a girl whispered to Madison while sneaking a peek behind them. "Yep, they're our siblings. Actually, there are 7 of us total." "7?" several students echoed in disbelief. "We're not joking. It used to be 6. Now we're complete," Michael chimed in. "The 7th is Elias." Everyone turned to look at Elias. He sat quietly in the farthest row, head down, notebook open, pen in hand. "Cute, but mysterious," one of the girls whispered to Don. "Elias? Yeah, but warning, he's serious. Doesn't do small talk," Don replied. "More silent than silence," Danny added as he opened his lunchbox. As the day went on, the class noticed something different about Elias. Though he resembled Michael and Danny almost exactly, there was something about him that stood apart. He didn't mingle, rarely spoke, but his answers were always correct. During group work, he quietly finished his tasks with precision. It didn't take long before people started paying attention, especially the girls. "He's like one of those drama characters who sits in the corner but seems to know your whole life just by looking at you," one student whispered to Madison. "I don't even know if I'm proud or terrified that he's our sibling," Madison said. "He already has more admirers than the rest of us combined. The type you can't even tell you have a crush on because he'll melt your soul with just a glance. Someone even left a love letter in his locker." "What did he do?" "Nothing. Folded it, shoved it into his bag. Didn't even look." During lunch, Angela, one of the top students, approached him. "Hi, there's an extra seat at our table. Want to join?" Elias looked at her. "Okay." "Did you see that?" Danny whispered dramatically. "I haven't even gotten a text back yet and he's already getting lunch invites," That never happens. Not even to me, Don grumbled. You're going to have a girlfriend before Dad even gets to propose to Mom again, Dolly added. Elias just shook his head, but as he looked down, Matthew noticed the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Hey, he smiled, Matthew gasped. Still kinda serious, though. The group burst out laughing. In the garden, Miriam and Drew sat across from each other at a small outdoor table. Can you believe we're here now? Miriam asked, sipping her coffee. I really thought we'd never see each other again, Drew replied. I thought there was no way back. And yet, the universe had to kidnap our children first and just to bring us back together. Fate sure knows how to make a dramatic entrance, Miriam said with a laugh. Just then, all 7 kids came running out, wearing matching t-shirts. Picture time, Don shouted, carrying a tripod. Everybody get in place, Michael called out as he adjusted the camera frame. Elias, you go in the middle, Dolly instructed. Why me? Elias asked, though he still walked forward. Because that makes it obvious you're the coolest, Danny said. I didn't agree to wear this shirt, Matthew muttered as he pulled at the sleeve. Not like we asked, Madison teased. While the others bustled about, Elias stepped up to Drew. Dad? Drew looked at him. Yeah? Thanks, Elias said quietly, his voice clear. For what? For everything. For giving me a family I never thought I could have. Drew placed a hand on his shoulder. You know, I used to wonder how I'd ever hug you without scaring you off. But now, here you are. I'm not used to this, but it feels good, having people to call family, Elias said, looking down. You don't have to get used to it. You're already here, Drew replied. Are you done with the drama over there? Michael called from behind the camera. 1, 2, 3, smile. They all laughed at once. After the picture, the kids sat in the grass, sharing sandwiches. Then Matthew suddenly asked, Mom, Dad, are you ever getting married again? Miriam and Drew looked at each other, surprised by the question. Drew answered first. Not yet. Not yet, for now, Miriam added. Why not? Madison asked. Because marriage isn't just about love, Miriam said. It's about timing, healing, and knowing that you're ready to take a leap. Again. But you still love each other, right? Dolly asked, munching on her sandwich. Of course, that's not even a question, Miriam replied, glancing at Drew. Then isn't love enough? Don asked. Miriam smiled. Love is the beginning, but it's not the only thing a relationship needs. There's also trust, patience, respect, and the courage to start over. Sounds like you're dropping hints, Mom, Madison teased. What if you get old and still aren't married? Danny asked. Do we call you boyfriend and girlfriend forever? Everyone burst out laughing, including Drew. Okay, fine. If we're still not married by the time we're 80, you kids get to decide if we should tie the knot, Drew joked. Deal, they all shouted in unison. But Mom, even if you're not married, we're still a real family, right? Elias asked. Miriam nodded and kissed his forehead. Of course we are, sweetheart. Completely, fully, absolutely. And that's what matters, Drew added. Months later, what the 7 kids had been hoping for finally happened. When the time felt right, and both Miriam and Drew knew they were ready to begin again, Drew proposed to the woman he once failed to ask. Before everything had fallen apart, they found happiness again, peace, and most importantly, love. Because marriage didn't need to be rushed, especially when hearts weren't ready. What mattered more was being present, honest, and real as parents, those who could share in every tear, walk alongside every step, and stay even when nothing was certain. And that is where the love story of Miriam and Drew ends.